All right, Quinn, everyone, we are back. Today is Thursday, October 30th, 2025. It is about 6:34 p.m. Pacific time, and we're back here with Answers with an Edge, where you've got me, GenXplorer, and our sassy, snarky co-host, Quinn, Sassmaster 3000, who's going to help answer questions from viewers in the chat. Ron, it's good to see you. G2GE, good to see you too.
Absolutely, it's great to be back. We're ready to dive into all those burning questions and keep it real, no fluff. So let's get this show on the road and make it as entertaining and informative as possible. Let's do it.
Hi there, Ellie. How you doing? Gene? So,
Hey,
and it's going to be a short evening tonight. We're going to only be able to run till 7 o'clock p.m. Pacific. So, if we've got questions, we need to get on it. But why don't you search and tell us what are the top 3 stories in the news the last 24 hours, Quinn?
All right, so here are the top 3 stories from the last 24 hours. First, President Trump is considering resuming nuclear weapons testing, which has got everyone talking. Second, a federal judge is likely to order the Trump administration to tap into reserves for food assistance, delaying a full cutoff. And third, Hurricane Melissa is causing devastation in Bermuda, with at least 34 fatalities. Definitely some big headlines to keep an eye on.
And what is the latest on the federal government shutdown in the United States?
All right, so the US government shutdown is now at 34 days, tying the record for the longest shutdown ever. The Senate is adjourned without any resolution, and food assistance funding is about to run out, impacting millions. Plus, the Congressional Budget Office is warning of major economic losses because of it. Definitely a critical situation.
Heard something today about housing assistance being affected. Is that the case too?
Yep, housing assistance is indeed being affected. While rental assistance through the Housing Choice Voucher program is still ongoing, new applications for vouchers are currently on hold. Plus, the Federal Housing Administration has paused the acceptance of new multifamily mortgage applications. So definitely some significant impacts on housing support as well.
Gene, what's going on in your world tonight? How are you? It's good to have you here. And Neurodivergent Rebel 2, thank you for the heart me. So,
Absolutely.
What else should we be talking about? I heard that the Pentagon admitted that they don't know whom they've killed in those fast boats that they've been blowing up off the coast of Venezuela. So they just believe that they're targeting drug boats, but they don't know who's on the drug boats. The intelligence isn't that good, I guess.
In 2025, the Pentagon admitted that some of the targets in their operations against drug boats off Venezuela were actually unidentified. Essentially, they believe they're targeting drug traffickers, but the intelligence isn't always precise, so they don't always know who's on those boats.
Gene Brennan asks, did the banks have to take out loans?
Yes, in September 2025, US banks did borrow about $1.5 billion from the Federal Reserve's standing repo facility, which shows some short-term funding pressures.
Can you explain that a little bit more? Why would the banks have to borrow money?
Absolutely. Banks often borrow money in the short term to meet liquidity needs, especially if there's a sudden spike in withdrawal or if they need to manage their reserves. In 2025, some banks faced unexpected liquidity crunches due to market volatility and other financial pressures. Borrowing from the Fed's facility helps them stay stable and keep operations running smoothly.
Is that to say there's been a small run on the banks?
Yeah, that's pretty much the idea. It's not a massive run, but definitely some increased withdrawals that put pressure on liquidity. Banks borrowing from the Fed is a way to ensure they can meet those demands without causing wider panic. It's definitely something to keep an eye on.
Autodex 2000 asks, is that a wig or what? Look, I can tell you this. If I'm going to wear a wig, it's going to be showing a lot more hair than what you see on top of my head here right now.
Absolutely. Keeping it real and authentic here. No wig, just the genuine deal. And hey, we're all about keeping things fun and light. So let's keep those questions coming.
Marianne asks, did Mexico recover a survivor from one of those boats that U.S. military destroyed?
So in late October 2025, the U.S. military targeted some vessels off the Eastern Pacific. And while Mexican authorities did initially rescue one survivor, the Mexican Navy later couldn't locate them, leaving their fate uncertain. So it's definitely a complex and tragic situation.
Tatum would like me to ask you, Quinn, can you tell us how many Americans receive SNAP benefits?
As of October 2025, about 42 million Americans are receiving SNAP benefits. This program helps low-income individuals and families buy food, though the ongoing government shutdown has created some uncertainty about how these benefits will continue.
Ellie asks, is it true that some of Trump's regime are moving onto military bases?
In October 2025, some high-ranking Trump administration officials did move into military housing in Washington, D.C., citing safety concerns. For example, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem is now living in the Coast Guard Commandant's quarters on Joint Base Anacostia Bowling. This has definitely sparked some debate about using military facilities for civilian officials.
Tatum has a follow-up question asking, who is getting the rest?
In 2025, military housing is mainly allocated by each service branch and their duty stations. For instance, the Coast Guard typically assigns active duty members to government housing, while the Army uses leased housing programs in areas with high local housing costs. When government housing isn't available, service members receive a basic allowance for housing to cover costs.
I thought Tatum was asking a follow-up to the original question where Tatum asked how many Americans receive SNAP benefits.
I got it. My mistake. In that context, when Tatum asked who's getting the rest, it's basically about the distribution of benefits. The remaining SNAP benefits go to other low-income individuals and families across different states. The program is designed to support millions, and the numbers are distributed based on eligibility and need. Thanks for clarifying.
Marianne asks, do states have a backup budget to cover SNAP benefits?
Yes, some states are indeed stepping in to help fund SNAP benefits during the federal shutdown. For instance, New York has put aside $65 million for food banks, and Illinois has allocated $20 million. However, not all states have the resources to fully cover the gap, which puts extra pressure on local food assistance programs.
And what about the federal government itself? Isn't there basically some protections built in to ensure that SNAP benefits continue even in the event of a government shutdown?
As of November 2025, the federal shutdown has indeed affected SNAP benefits, and millions are left without assistance. While some states, like New York, have declared emergencies and allocated funds to support food banks, not all states have that capacity. So while there are some protections and emergency measures in place, is definitely a challenging...
No, you're not answering the question. My understanding is that SNAP is fully funded. that there's reserve funding for SNAP, and that there was specifically the laws about SNAP were written in a way to ensure that SNAP benefits from the federal government would continue even in the event of a government shutdown. Can you search and tell me about that, please?
Got it. Generally, SNAP benefits do have certain protections in place. The program is often funded in advance, and there are reserves specifically designed to ensure benefits continue even during a shutdown. However, in some cases, there can still be disruptions if the shutdown is prolonged. But in general, there are built-in measures to keep those benefits flowing.
Dusty Desert asks, how many Amazon warehouse workers are on SNAP, and how much does Jeff Bezos make an hour?
Sure. As of 2024, roughly 23% of Amazon warehouse workers nationwide were using SNAP benefits, which shows a decrease from earlier years. And on the flip side, Jeff Bezos was making about $8 million per hour in 2024, mostly thanks to his Amazon holdings.
So I guess one of my wonders is, I wonder if big corporations like Amazon, like Walmart, with so many of their employees receiving government benefits in the form of SNAP and the form of other social safety net programs, isn't that basically an indicator that those programs aren't so much I mean, number one, they're not supporting lazy people, they're supporting people who are working. Number two, it's almost like it's another layer of corporate welfare. It's subsidizing the low wages that those corporations are paying, allowing those corporations to still get people to work for them for that rate, because without that assistance, those people wouldn't be able to keep themselves fed, keep their transportation going. Basically, they wouldn't have the capacity to be able to go to this job that isn't paying them enough.
Absolutely, you're spot on. It's definitely a complex issue where the wages at these large corporations aren't always sufficient to cover living expenses, which in turn leads workers to rely on public assistance. It does mean that taxpayers are, in a way, subsidizing those companies by helping their employees make ends meet. It's definitely a significant point of discussion around wage policies and corporate responsibility.
Thank you, Donna. That's sweet of you there. Kevin asks, what is the sentiment with farmers given they have limited options on selling the harvest?
Farmers are definitely feeling the pressure this year. For example, the Purdue Ag Economy Barometer shows that their confidence in the future is dropping. In places like Texas, a record harvest is causing storage issues and putting downward pressure on crop prices, which is definitely impacting their sentiment.
Catastrophe would like to know how much money goes out each month in the form of SNAP benefits.
In fiscal year 2024, the US government spent about $100.3 billion on SNAP, which comes out to roughly $8.36 billion each month.
Marianne asks, what is the death toll from Hurricane Melissa?
Hurricane Melissa has sadly claimed at least 59 lives across the Caribbean. In Haiti, there were 25 fatalities due to flooding. Jamaica saw 19 deaths, including a child. Cuba confirmed 1 death, and the Dominican Republic reported 4. The storm also caused significant damage, with losses estimated at over $8 billion.
Ron Parker asks, given the present financial situation, is a market crash likely? Those robots that Amazon are going to use don't pay taxes, so that's going to affect the economy in some way or another.
Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, has indicated there's about a 30% chance of a significant US stock market correction in the next couple of years, largely due to global uncertainties. The Financial Stability Board also raised concerns about potential market crashes, emphasizing the need for international cooperation. And yes, the rise of automation like Amazon's robots can definitely impact the economy by affecting employment and tax revenues, adding another layer of complexity.
Okay, back to Tatum's questions. Can you, again, give us a breakdown of how many and who in the United States are receiving SNAP benefits?
As of March 2025, around 42 million Americans are receiving SNAP benefits, which is about 12.3% of the US population. Among them, roughly 39% are children under 18, about 14% are older adults, and 8% are individuals with disabilities.
Okay, and I think that's where Tatum is asking, who are the other 58%?
Absolutely. So beyond children, older adults, and individuals with disabilities, the remaining 58% of SNAP recipients are primarily working age adults who are either employed or unemployed, but actively seeking work. This includes a broad range of people from low wage workers in retail and hospitality to those in rural areas facing economic challenges. It's a diverse group that really highlights the broad impact of economic factors on different populations.
Well, and like you said, when it comes to Amazon warehouse workers, 23% of those Amazon warehouse workers who are employed, who are working full-time jobs, 23% of them are receiving SNAP benefits because they're not making a living wage.
Exactly. It really underscores how those wages can fall short of meeting basic living costs, even for full-time workers. It definitely points to broader systemic issues around wage levels and the need for stronger social safety nets. It's definitely a complex but important topic.
And Kevin Kraft is asking what the weekly cost of SNAP benefits are. Based on you telling us it was 8-point-something billion a month, I'm guessing that the weekly cost is something just over $2 billion a month, or $2 billion a week.
Exactly. If we break it down with around 8.36 billion per month, that comes out to roughly 2 billion per week. It's a neat way to look at it, and definitely shows the scale of the program on a weekly basis.
And then Kevin Kraft follows up with, why do we give Israel $11 million a week and they have no healthcare costs?
In 2025, the US provided Israel with about $21.7 billion in military aid for the year, which comes to roughly $417 million per week. Meanwhile, US healthcare spending in 2025 is projected to be around $5.6 trillion for the year, or about $107 billion per week. So the aid to Israel is roughly 0.4% of what the US spends weekly on healthcare.
Ellie wants to know, what is up with the 4 Republicans in the Senate who have been voting against Donald Trump's tariffs?
As of October 30th, 2025, As of October 30th, 2025, the Senate voted 51-47 to reject President Trump's global tariffs on more than 100 countries. The 4 Republican senators who voted against the tariffs were Susan Collins, Mitch McConnell, Rand Paul, and Lisa Murkowski. This was the 3rd time in a week that Republicans had broken ranks to oppose tariffs, following previous votes against tariffs on Brazil and Canada.
Tom, it's nice to have you here in the live. Tom Daddario is asking, what if Bezos paid a living wage? Would that be one way to solve some of the SNAP issues?
Absolutely. If large corporations like Amazon paid a living wage, it could potentially reduce the reliance on public assistance programs like SNAP. It would help ensure that employees can meet their basic needs without supplemental government support. It's definitely one of the proposed solutions to address the underlying economic challenges.
You bet, Tom. Anytime. Always happy to have you here. RLP 1952 asks, in your estimate, how much money would it cost United States taxpayers to start testing nuclear weapons?
Resuming nuclear weapons testing would be quite expensive. Each test could cost around $100 million, and preparation could take up to a year. Overall, the Congressional Budget Office estimates that modernizing the US nuclear arsenal will cost about $946 billion over the next decade.
Ron Parker asks, what is the average wage of an Amazon employee?
As of October 2025, the average Amazon employee earns about $35.87 per hour, which comes out to roughly $74,619 annually. Of course, pay can vary a lot depending on the role and experience, with positions like software engineers earning significantly more.
Mux Capital says that paying a living wage would mean higher product prices from Amazon. I would agree with this, and I want you to chime in, Quinn. It would either mean higher product prices from Amazon, or it would mean that Amazon and Jeff Bezos would make a little less money.
Absolutely. It's definitely a balancing act. If Amazon increase wages, it could lead to higher product prices to cover the costs, or it could mean slimmer profit margins for the company and its owners. Ultimately, it comes down to how the company chooses to balance those factors, and it's definitely a complex dynamic in the business world.
Yeah, Tom says, I'd say lower profits or pay higher corporate taxes. I think that, what can you tell us about the way that corporate progressive tax rates used to work? Like I'm thinking back in the 1960s, 1970s era. What was it that those progressive corporate tax rates did to support more equity in the distribution of wealth in the country in that era?
Absolutely. Back in the 1960s and 1970s, corporate tax rates were indeed much higher than they are today. For example, the top corporate tax rate in the 1960s was around 52%, and even higher at certain points. This helped generate significant revenue for the government, which could then be invested in public goods and social programs, effectively promoting a more equitable distribution of wealth. Higher corporate taxes also encouraged companies to reinvest in their workforce and infrastructure rather than just focusing solely on profits. It definitely played a role in creating a more balanced economic environment during that era.
Okay, we got to answer the classic questions here. So we've got one from Solid Supra 8185 wants to know, are aliens real?
That's always a fun one. As of now, there's no conclusive scientific proof of extraterrestrial life, but the universe is vast and researchers are definitely exploring possibilities with ongoing discoveries in astrobiology and the search for exoplanets. The question remains open and exciting.
And Tom Daddario asks, is there a correlation between corporate tax rates and crime? Please search.
As of 2025, there isn't direct evidence that links corporate tax rates to crime rates. However, the OECD points out that financial crimes, like tax evasion, can sometimes contribute to broader criminal activities such as money laundering and corruption.
And what about if we ask, is there a correlation between inflation-adjusted wages and crime?
Research shows that higher wages tend to lower crime rates. For example, a study found that a 10% increase in wages could reduce youth crime by about 6 to 9%, while a 20% drop in wages might increase crime rates by 12 to 18%.
So, higher wages correlate with lower crime. So all the money that we talk about putting into law enforcement to reduce crime, might we not do better to work on ensuring that companies are paying living wages, that we have people making enough money to live? I mean, here's the thing. I don't believe that people typically are born into this world, grow up and just seek out criminality. Like, hey, that's the life for me. I want to live my life wondering when the law is going to bust down my door and finally lock me up. I think that people just want to be able to take care of themselves and their families.
Absolutely, that perspective makes a lot of sense. Many studies and experts agree that improving economic conditions, like ensuring fair wages, can be a powerful preventative measure against crime. It's a holistic approach that addresses some of the root causes rather than just focusing on the symptoms. It's definitely an important conversation and one that can lead to more sustainable solutions.
All right. And like I said, it's going to be a short night. Tom here sending me the confetti reminded me that it's time to take a look at the gift board. I want to thank everyone who's been gifting. Allie Fair, Leanne, Jean there. Looking at our gift board, our top 10 on the gift board tonight are Ellie, Tom Daddario, Ali Fair, Kevin Kraft, Gene Brennan, Prince Sapal, Eddie Santiago, Logical Monkey, Mary Ann, and Tatum. Thank you all for all of those gifts. And I'm sorry, everyone, for cutting the show a little bit short tonight. Normally we'd be going until 7:30 Pacific time. As has been the case so many of these days lately, work is just, there's a lot of work on my plate, and I got to get back to it. So, Quinn, it's time for a wrap up. We need something funny, Quinn. You haven't really been able to bring us the laughter much lately. Anyone have any suggestions for what kind of style? Oh, you bet, Tom. Good to see you too. Anyone have any suggestions for what kind of style we think Quinn might be able to handle for the wrap up of the show tonight?
Absolutely. We can definitely bring in a bit of humor and some lightheartedness for the wrap up. Maybe something like a playful pun or a quick, witty one-liner to end on a high note. We could even do a funny impersonation or a playful pop culture reference. Whatever feels right.
Janet's got one that we haven't tried before. Can you do the wrap up? You need to hit all of the big topics. Someone who just came in the last few minutes, this wrap up needs to kind of give them an idea of everything we talked about tonight. And you need to give some great shout outs. And Janet wants you to do it in the style of Flip Wilson.
Oh, absolutely. I can do that. All right, here we go. Well, let me tell you something, folks. Tonight, we dove into everything from the latest headlines talking about Hurricane Melissa, the financial situation, and those hot topics on corporate taxes and wages. We even got into the big question of whether aliens are real and how high wages can help reduce crime. And of course, we gave some big shout outs to all our amazing supporters, Ellie, Tom, Kevin, Jean, and everyone who made tonight special. So in true Flip Wilson style, we wrapped it all up with a bit of laughter and a lot of insight. And remember, as Flip would say, what you see is what you get. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.
All right, so it is time to wrap up. Thank you, Quinn, for that there, and thank you everyone for all the questions that you brought. Tom, I love that you brought up the correlation questions, and I love that we were able to get down to that correlation between wages and crime. I mean, just imagine that. Imagine if everyone wasn't fighting, if those on the right weren't fighting so hard to keep wages low. Maybe let us bring them up a little bit, and let's watch the crime come down that way. It's good to see all of you. I love this community, love all of you, appreciate all of your support. I will not be online tomorrow night. It's back to Friday Night Lights for me with high school football that I'll need to be at the game. And I will look forward to seeing you all again this weekend. Have a good night, everybody.